I just want to touch on, like, I was listening because I agree and disagree with parts of what she said. I agree with the part when she said you must be picked, and I agree with the part when she said uh the finite amount of marriageable black men. But she made a statement that kind of stood out to me when she said you're not being picked because you're black. What what is the percentage of black men that aren't dating black women because they're black? I know that I'm not saying that that doesn't occur, but what is like
She didn't say
what is
date
that
and
percentage? That
marry.
percentage,
That's different.
or
She
well,
We
you got
know you're daters.
well
married.
date
We're
well
talking about
you
marrying
it's
us.
just when I
Married.
talk about date, I'm talking about dating with purpose. Dating with purpose means there's an intent to hopefully at some point get to the marriage stage. So how many? Like, what is that percentage has got to be less than 7% that
So
say I'm not going to marry you because you're black.
no, so she didn't say it was just being black, right? She
Yeah,
said
she
that,
did say that though.
but she
Mhm.
was specifically speaking for herself and her own experience as a dark-skinned black woman. And I think that caveat is really important because we can't ignore the fact that colorism exists in our community, right? My experience as a black woman is very different than the experience of a dark-skinned black woman, right? The amount of times that I've heard, even towards myself, that comparison to dark skinned black women gives me the ick, right? And if I'm hearing that as somebody who is stereotypically considered more desirable, I can only imagine what's being said to young women that look like her,
Then that
right?
goes back to Marcus's point about the self-hate piece.
Absolutely.
You
So,
like that's insane to me.
but
Look,
to
you know
that,
what?
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna add one piece. So no, it is insane, and I purposely make sure if I see like a woman wearing her natural hair, I go out my way to try and compliment her and like dark skinned women that because I be trying to make up for the bullshit that's occurred. You know what I'm saying? Like, let me give you some extra motivation and positivity just because I know you got extra negativity and discrimination coming your way in regards to your self image, and that's really important with women. I definitely be trying to do that a lot. Like I'm making
Well,
my business. If you wear your natural hair, even if I'm not particularly a fan, I'm a fan of the idea of it. So I'm just gonna support you on that, just on that.
Yeah, and I personally have never heard it the way it was just expressed, right? With the skin tone, the melanin difference, like that. I've never like that. That's insane to me. I won't marry a dark a dark woman. Like that's
so
wow.
it doesn't necessarily come out like that. It'll often, and I'm sure you've probably heard it this way, of like wanting the babies to look a certain way, right? Wanting the babies, hoping that the babies look more like the mother than the father, of, you know, praying that they don't wind up with dark skinned babies. Like, it doesn't necessarily go directly towards the woman herself, but if you're dark skinned and she's dark skinned, the likelihood of you having mixed race looking children is like almost non-existent, right? Statistically speaking. So it comes out in like these self-hating microaggressions all the time through everyday conversation. It's in music lyrics all the time. We were referencing Beyonce. She doesn't do, but you know, people like Chris Brown and others do it. It comes out in so many different. So when you have a woman who's beautiful, right? She and there's no question about that young lady was beautiful, who's desiring marriage, who's heard nothing but negative comments towards her because of her, like the amount of melanin in her skin. What are her options, right? She's saying the men that I want aren't choosing me because of what I look like. She's not an overweight woman. She's not a woman with bad skin. She seems to be very well spoken. I don't know who she is, so I don't know what her rhetoric is like, but she's saying she wants to be with a black man, but she's not afforded the opportunity of marriage because of her skin tone. So what are her options if she wants to get married? Is it to stay single or is it to go outside?
What's tricky about that comment? Because I've heard that argument made from a lot of women. The part that kind of is really tricky is we not factoring in the delusion, right? Because she may get hit on by the men that are her equivalent. She just might feel she's much better than those men. And then when we was making the example of the equal exchange for exchange, man to man, race to race, then to then say, I'm just gonna go, it's back to the self-hate for me. But I agree with what you're saying. I just want to add that part in there.
But I also real fast. I understand what you're saying. I think that this woman has dates. I don't think that this woman is a beautiful woman. I think that she gets guys. Okay, I don't care what her complexion is. I can tell she probably gets guys. However, the key word here is marriage. Can we start focusing on her keyword is men who are marriage minded? Because to get a guy is one thing. To get a guy to marry you is a very different thing. A guy will have you in a relationship forever and not marry you. Okay, so I think what she's saying is to get a marriage minded guy who wants to marry her, she feels that she has to do this. But go ahead, Ms. Aiken.
Well, that was what I was gonna say, that the caveat to what you were saying wasn't about her not being picked or even her being chosen by, like what you were saying in terms of delusional. She may be being picked by men, but she's not necessarily interested in those men who may be interested in her. My thing is, I guess for her, even the type of black men that she's interested in, if they're not interested in her, her point is, I'm looking to be married. So if I have to have my other interests or whatever my standards are, that the black men that I want that have those standards don't want me, then I'm okay with going elsewhere, with dating outside of my race, with men that have that meet the same standards that I want, but it just so happens that they're not black. Because if my goal is to get married, and in this group of black men, based on the standards that I want, don't want me, then I'm going to go somewhere else for those same group of men that have those standards who are looking to be married. And I think the biggest thing is the marriage part. We see it in these spaces, even statistically. The marriage rates have gone down across the board, no matter what race you look at. But in terms of getting married in general, Black people are at the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to that. So she's absolutely right in terms of her even having access to marriage-minded Black men. So so that already puts her at a deficit. And then when you add on, I have certain standards that I need my Black man to meet. And I'm not talking about the superficial standards. Let's just assume that it's just, I'm going to just say basic characteristic standards that you would need to have a good marriage. So then if you put those standards in place, that also knocks off a whole bunch of men off her, Black men off her list, because there are a lot of Black men who just don't want to be married. So she's left with a little pool of men, Black men that she can choose from, while she's competing among a whole bunch of Black women that are also competing for that small group of men. So it would make sense to broaden her options by going outside of just this small group.
See, I'm not suggesting that she does or does not, broaden her options. I'm trying to figure out how she came to the conclusion that it was her skin tone as to why she hasn't been picked for marriage through the marriageable guys that she's interested in, the marriage-minded guys that she's interested in. So, like, what man came out and said to her, "I want to get married. You're a cool chick, but I can't get married to you because you are too dark." Like that.
So maybe,
how do you draw that conclusion?
Well, maybe it could be from an observation. It could be that the men that she's chosen or she's been with have left her for lighter skinned women. You know, we don't know what her experience, how she came up with that conclusion. We can't knock the fact that even if people don't say we don't, you know, we hate dark skinned women, we do praise light skinned women. We hear it all the time in music, like light skinned chick, like you put it like it's a prize to have on your arm, that light skinned chick. So you don't directly say I don't like dark skinned women, but you praise light skinned women too, you know, over and over again, to the point where it's like, well damn.
The blacker the berry, the
sister,
sweeter the
you know?
juice. The darker the flesh, the deeper the roots.
And
You
that
can
was
say
in
what
the
you want,
90s. Absolutely. That song
but
came out in the 90s. Where's the 2000? I mean, we got decades of songs. Can we bring it back?
Now, I'm gonna be honest, from what I see, and this is a minor observation. I can't say that this is general, but for what I've seen, to be honest, when I've seen white men dating black women, that's the woman that they have. The darker the berry, the sweeter the juice. They're getting the dark-skinned women. I rarely ever saw a white man that is dating a black woman with a light-skinned woman versus looking.
I see it. It's just not you do. They do go for like the.
And like I said, I know this. I can't speak for a entire group. That's why I prefaced it with the fact that from what I've seen, in terms of those interracial couples where the woman is black and a man is white, I've usually have seen the darker woman with a white man, where I can say in a black community, in my observation and looking at my family and stuff like that, that the way that they are paired off, the men are typically, the men are darker and the women are lighter.
Yeah,
that's just what I've seen within my family and other families. I got on because my husband is light too, and they're like, "Oh, Dad, you the only one to end up, with somebody that look like, your color, And I said, "Well, he's a little darker, but that's my point. I was the anomaly in the situation."
So I wanted to add too that that's not just a Black American thing. Like if you go to other countries, I've seen even with the passport bros, when the women are being interviewed from these other countries, the darker skinned Latinas or the women who are in other countries, they are also saying that the men are not choosing them. They are being chosen. The more white Latinas are being chosen over the brown Latinas. So that's not just an American thing. That is also taking place with the passport bros.